Alzheimer's disease. It's a word that carries a heavy weight, especially for those of us who have watched loved ones change before our eyes, or who find ourselves wondering if small lapses in memory are something more than just a sign of getting older. But while most people know about the obvious symptoms, the forgetfulness, the confusion, the names that slip away, it's the silent symptoms, the subtle hints that often go unnoticed. These are the warning signs that whisper before they shout, and it's these signs we need to talk about today. Because early detection can make all the difference, not only in managing the disease, but in giving families more time and more hope. If you're over 60, or if you care for someone who is, this conversation is for you. Let's take a moment to look beyond the surface and dig into the 7 silent symptoms of Alzheimer's that most people ignore, and why paying attention to these subtle changes could change everything. Let's start with the story, a story that might sound a little familiar. Imagine sitting at your kitchen table, the smell of coffee in the air, shuffling a deck of cards for your weekly game of solitaire. You've played this game for years, the same routine, the same rules. But lately, something's different. You find yourself pausing, staring at the cards, unsure which move to make next. You brush it off as being tired, maybe distracted. But this small change, this struggle with problem solving, is the first silent symptom I want to talk about. Difficulty with planning or solving familiar problems is subtle. It creeps in slowly. Maybe it's not just the cards, but balancing your checkbook, following that old recipe you've made 100 times, or remembering the steps to fix a leaky faucet. These moments can be frustrating, embarrassing even, but they're often dismissed as just getting older. The truth is, when this kind of confusion happens more than occasionally, it deserves attention. Another symptom that often goes unnoticed is changes in mood or personality. We all have bad days, days when we feel a little down, a little irritable. But with Alzheimer's, these changes can be more pronounced, more persistent. You might find yourself withdrawing from your favorite activities, losing interest in hobbies that once brought you joy, or feeling anxious and unsettled in situations that never used to bother you. I remember my own father, once the life of the party, suddenly preferring to stay home, reluctant to join family gatherings. He got upset more easily and sometimes would accuse us of hiding things or being unfair. At first, we thought it was just part of aging, but looking back, these were the early whispers of something deeper. Mood changes can be a protective instinct, a way to cope with confusion or frustration, but they're worth noticing, especially if they linger or begin to disrupt everyday life. Misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace steps is another silent symptom. We all misplace our keys or glasses from time to time, but with Alzheimer's, it's not just about losing things, it's about not remembering where or how you lost them, and sometimes even accusing others of taking them. It can be a cycle of frustration and confusion. My friend Joe used to laugh off his missing wallet, but soon, the laughter faded and was replaced by suspicion and anger. The difference here is that it's not just about forgetfulness, it's about a lack of logic in finding lost items and a loss of trust in people around you. The next silent symptom is trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. This is one that's often overlooked because it doesn't always seem connected to memory. You might start having trouble judging distance when driving or recognizing your own reflection in the mirror. Reading might become more difficult, or you might struggle to distinguish colors. I remember my aunt, an avid quilter who suddenly had trouble matching fabrics and colors, making mistakes she never would have made before. These changes can lead to accidents, falls, or simply a loss of confidence in everyday activities. It's easy to blame poor eyesight, but sometimes it's the brain that's having trouble making sense of what it sees. Difficulty with communication, finding the right words, following a conversation, or repeating yourself is another sign that often goes unnoticed. Maybe you start to lose your train of thought mid-sentence or struggle to remember familiar words. You might find yourself repeating stories or getting frustrated when you can't express yourself. This can be embarrassing, leading you to withdraw from social situations, which only makes things worse. It's easy to call it a senior moment, but when these moments add up, it's worth having a conversation with your doctor. One of the most heartbreaking silent symptoms is poor judgment. We all make mistakes, but Alzheimer's can cause lapses in judgment that are out of character, giving away large sums of money to strangers, neglecting personal hygiene, or making risky decisions that put yourself or others in danger. My neighbor, Helen, once meticulous about her bills and health, started falling for every phone scam that came her way. She'd never been careless before, and it was a sign that something had changed. Poor judgment is easy to overlook, especially when it's chalked up to being too trusting or too generous, but it can have serious consequences. Finally, withdrawal from work or social activities rounds out our list of silent symptoms. When you start to notice someone pulling away from the things they love, the weekly bowling league, Sunday church services, family dinners, it's time to pay attention. Sometimes it's because these activities have become too challenging or confusing, but sometimes it's simply easier to stay home, away from the embarrassment of not remembering names or losing track of conversations. The world starts to shrink, and with it, opportunities for joy and connection. Now, I know this is a lot to take in. If you're over 60, or you have family members in this age group, these symptoms might sound all too familiar. It's easy to brush them off as normal aging, but there's a difference between harmless forgetfulness and the early signs of Alzheimer's. The distinction can be hard to see, and it's even harder to admit when you see it in yourself or someone you love. But ignoring these silent symptoms doesn't make them go away. It only delays the chance to get help, to make plans, and to hold on to precious time. It's important to remember that experiencing one or two of these symptoms doesn't mean you have Alzheimer's, but it does mean you should pay attention. Talk to your doctor. Keep a journal of the changes you notice and encourage your loved ones to do the same. Early diagnosis gives you options, access to treatments that can slow the progression, opportunities to plan for your future, and time to make the most of every day. It also helps families prepare emotionally and practically for the road ahead. Let me share something personal. When my father first started showing signs, getting lost on the way home, forgetting the names of his grandchildren, growing quiet and withdrawn, we didn't want to believe it was anything more than old age. We told ourselves he was just tired, distracted, maybe a little depressed. By the time we realized what was happening, we've lost precious months. If I could go back, I'd pay attention to those silent symptoms. I'd talk to him.
Sooner, get help and find ways to make every moment count. Living with Alzheimer's or loving someone who does is never easy. It's a journey filled with heartache, but also with moments of grace, laughter, and deep connection. Recognizing the early signs can make a world of difference. It's about dignity, about respect, and about giving yourself and your loved ones the best chance at living well. So, what can you do today? Start by having honest conversations. Share this information with your family and friends. Take note of the small changes, the subtle shifts, and trust your instincts. If something feels off, don't be afraid to seek help. There's no shame in asking questions, and there's no harm in being proactive. Alzheimer's isn't just a personal struggle, it's a community challenge. We need to look out for each other, support each other, and fight the stigma that keeps so many people silent.
As we wrap up, let's review those 7 silent symptoms one more time. Difficulty with planning or solving problems, changes in mood or personality, misplacing things, and losing the ability to retrace steps. Trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships, difficulty with communication, poor judgment, and with